Okay, as you can tell by the really awesome glasses, I just finished seeing a movie in 3D. I have seen what used to be called Avatar, The Last Airbender, and now it's became referred to as The Last Airbender to not confuse people with the other 3D movie that had the giant blue fuzzy people with the script stolen from Ferngully. How can I explain Book 1, Water? Yes, this movie is actually part of a series. If you didn't know, it's based on a cartoon, essentially about people who do what looks like Tai Chi or Gong Chi, and then get to summon the elements. Only if you are a bender. Waterbender controls water and ice. Firebender controls fire. Airbender, air. Earthbender, earth. I mean, it's a fairly easy concept to understand. It begins with a small explanation about how, you have the four different tribes, well, four different nations, sorry. In each nation, you have the Fire Nation, Earth Nation, Water Nation, Air Nation. It's pretty easy to understand. And then there was an Avatar. The Avatar had control over all four elements, as well as got to go to the spirit world, so he got ultimate harmony. For over 100 years, there hasn't been an Avatar. And during that time, the people who ruled the Fire Nation decided to kind of conquer the world through the use of giant machines. Interesting to see, steam-powered machines and other sorts of, tanks and whatnot being up by the fire people, and everyone else still had what felt kind of like that very agrarian-style society. The Earth people lived on a section, or lived in areas that were primarily, dirt, soil. The people who were of the Water Nations lived on ice. And the people who had the Air Nations kind of lived in what looked like giant temples in the air. So you're introduced to who, if you've ever seen any of the trailers for it, you'll probably notice there's a kid with a weird tattoo on his head. That tattoo is the symbol for air, the arrow facing down. He was revealed to be the last airbender. Why? Because all the airbenders have been killed. Because it was prophesied that the next Avatar, who is the reincarnation of the first Avatar, would be born to the Airbender tribe. To make certain that they could stop that, the Fire Nation destroyed all of the Airbenders. So, when the child found out about it, he essentially fled. And he's the reason why there's been no Avatar for 100 years, because he was, ironically, encased in ice. Now, this movie asks a lot of young actors. Because the character is, I think he's probably maybe 10 or 12. He's somewhere in that range. He's not quite teenager yet. And I'm pretty sure if you were to be told, here is the rest of your life. You can have no family. You cannot have a normal life. Your job is to maintain balance between the four nations, as well as the spirit world and the regular plane. The times when he goes to the spirit world are kind of weird, because you can tell they kind of they bleach the film, so it has that weird kind of white pseudo-grainy effect. That's when he talks to the spirit dragons. This is where I can understand some critics thought the movie felt kind of muddled. And it does. Some of those moments are like, well, I have to go meditate. Okay. Dragon, what should I do? Something cryptic. But this is all done really dark, so you never actually really get to see how much fine detail is put into me, the dragon. Okay. The scenes where the Avatar is dealing with the Fire Nation's exiled prince are done very well. And some of the fight choreography is done beautifully. It kind of has that flowing wushu style, It's not just like, you're like, water! You have to do flowing hand gestures and, then release the water. So those moments are actually pretty nice and pretty unique. It had this really nice fluid motion to it, And it looked kind of bizarre. Like the Earth people, you tell, you still had some flowing to it, but you can tell it was a much more harder style because it was Earth. And the people who did fire, sometimes you see them solve the fire and then do a spin kick, and the kick would be the throwing of the fire at somebody. Which is fairly interesting, Now, you're probably thinking a movie about a bald kid who controls air, who essentially needs to learn how to control the other elements. while being chased by a nation of people who control fire, sounds like an absolutely action-packed story. There are lots of moments of dialogue. Lots. And it feels like some scenes need to be longer to make the actual outcome of the scene be that much more, drastic and dramatic. And what should have felt like twists and turns really are very simplistic, but you can tell, again, the story is designed primarily for children. Now, we saw it in 3D. To be honest, I couldn't pick out any 3D effects at all. You can tell 3D was an after effect for this movie. It was never shot for a 3D audience. It's like, I'm summoning a wave. Okay, the wave now appears to be slightly coming out of the screen. Not like the wave is coming up and over us, so it still kind of had that like foreground, background effect. But nothing really seemed to have that like fly towards you effect. So it was, you could see it in 2D, 3D doesn't add much to it, except it adds more to the price per ticket. But it is enjoyable. Now, I did say it is book 1 water. So like I mentioned, he knows air. He must also learn water, earth, and fire. So you can kind of figure out if he knows air and he's learning water, that's where this movie stops. It stops here. So you can tell there's going to be probably 1 to 2 more to cover earth and to cover fire. There could just be 1 more to cover earth and fire if he's already done, air and water. So don't expect to see an actual conclusion. It was good. It was entertaining. It's a matinee. It's a rental. If you have kids who like it, they do only actually show one person dying. They do show somebody getting encased in essentially a bubble of water, and he's doing this. He's actually, because he's surrounded in water, so he's drowning. But beyond that, most of the fighting is done with, bow staff, ball of air, you go flying away. Or, wave of rock dust. Hard water serpents. So it's not really overly violent. And I'll be honest, it was entertaining, it was pretty good. So that is Avatar, The Last Airbender, Book 1, Water. I will assume they'll probably do 1 or 2 more. And to be kind of honest, I could probably see watching them. It's got some really good effects to it. The plot itself it kind of has that bizarre coming of age story during a war, trying to find your destiny sort of feel to it, but it works better as an action movie with a light amount of philosophy to it than it does this huge, drama, epic fight sequence to it. So, it's good, it's entertaining, it's enjoyable. Of course, we can't call it Avatar anymore because of the 6-foot-tall balloon. So I guess the next one will be called The Last Airbender 2. Which again will seem kind of bizarre, because once you say the last, it doesn't seem like the last should have a sequel associated with it. But it's a cartoon series, it is what it is.